office is not necessarily an organization that you think of as having necessarily sort of a big lifestyle, brand, passion generated around. What we discovered rapidly is that when you start engaging people, even around the post office, you do discover there's passion around any business. In fact, generally speaking, the people who are most passionate about your business are always outside your business. Never people on the payroll, right? People on the payroll tend to be bored and cynical, but the people outside will have passion around your business. The first thing that these guys did is they organized some of those live workshops in various places in the post office that happened to be in the Lyon area. And they picked really 3 places. They picked a downtown place, they picked a suburban, kind of gritty, tough neighborhood place, and they picked literally a countryside place. On day 1, what we would do is actually talk with the teller employees, the people really literally at the teller, and then they would describe, in essence, how they interact with the public and how they interact with their own hierarchy. One of the greatest anxieties was really, what is the schedule I'm going to receive next week? You know you have a certain demand in each post office, right? You can statistically analyze that. You know from a supply standpoint, have a pool of labor that owes you a certain number of hours. You're trying to match the supply and the demand, one against the other. And traditionally, who does that? It's either the local post office manager or it's the management of the region as a whole. Okay. When we started stumbling into that, started wondering, well, what would happen if we were to open the process of simply scheduling employees? So in a little village, it's easy to do. You probably have a whopping 10 employees together. So you put a little sheet on the wall, right, a little spreadsheet on the wall, and people say, I'm signing up for this time, so. And then they work it among themselves, and the post office manager starts changing that. In a larger post office, you have more people, so somehow the process needs to be more, instrumented, has a little bit more technology. So in the big downtown Lyon post office, there needed to be some kind of tool, people trading, in essence, their hour. But the net result of that was, was spectacular. Very simple operational process. All of a sudden, these post offices started discovering that their absenteeism was way, way down. Okay? The co-creator, in this case the employee, has an experience that changes quite dramatically because he or she now controls the hours of coming to the post office. The cost goes down because the absenteeism goes down. The constituency involved is not even the customer. They're not involved yet. It's just between the employee and the post office manager that this is happening at this point. So this noble cycle, in essence, starts. Better experience for the teller, better experience for the post office manager. Having gained the intestinal fortitude to co-create inside, they said, what would happen if we were to start engaging the customers in each of those 17,000 post offices into the design of what we should be doing differently? Out of that came the notion for customers that somehow they didn't like the opening hours of the post office. Post office in France, until then, were really opening at 9 a.m. People would shut down for lunch and then come back, and finish at 5:30. And then, of course, when people wanted to go to the post office was during lunch hour in the evening and on weekends, and that's when they were closed. And in the big cities, the net effect has been to lengthen the opening hours. It's the big news in France right now. The post office is open until 8 o'clock at night. It's open on Saturday. A young lady was there and started explaining that she used the post office to send packages around. It was very striking in that workshop. So they were, immediately there were kind of notepads that started coming out from people, a lot of elderly people who started writing down, in essence, what this lady was doing on eBay because they didn't know how to use eBay. They had never used eBay. They had a computer. They were not, technology illiterate or anything, but they didn't know how to engage. The lady who was running the post office out there said, would it be helpful to invite this lady to come on a weekend, come on a Saturday out there? Would you be interested in having her sort of teach classes about this? So they did this with this lady, they did it with many others. These classes are extremely successful, attract a lot of people who come and learn how to use eBay out there. eBay itself is now coming out there. They lend some material, they send some representatives. And from a post office standpoint, you see the volume of packages going way up in the post offices when they do that. So again, you have this notion of the salespeople for the service of the post office is now the community itself. Right? They have a bunch of folks who, in the various regions, in essence, sort of act as the facilitators of that change. So there's this live process, and they also use a website, I guess, a co-creation platform. And when you start having those websites, those engagement platforms, those workshops, you see immediately what lights up the switchboard. Right? You could see kind of that internal democracy in play. So they are a call center. Starts with a classic, Indian outsourced call center. They work for British Airways, they work for they work for Aviva, insurance companies, and so on. So portray this as, in essence, groups of 10 people who work essentially in cubicles with a bunch of indicators, and they answer your calls when you've lost your luggage for British Airways, or somehow the local utility didn't come to your house in the UK or in the US, and so on. Their view is, hey, India is running, very, very fast. So there's this massive competition to attract people into the call center. Classic way of recruiting people is, you create some specs, the classic non-co-creative way. You create some specs, you bring the people against that, and then you see whether they match that specs, and if you like them, you hire them, right? But what these guys do now is they let you come as a group. So you can come with your college friends, right? So you can have 10 young women, for example, who show up out there and they say, we want to be interviewed as a group. And they have essentially an audition process. You see it looks very much like a Broadway audition. So they create groups, people move around, and they lead little sessions somehow in there, and they see the dynamics of the group. If the group of 10 people that shows up is very together, works well together, wants to work together, they will potentially be hired as a group of 10. Now, the other thing that they allow those people to do is these people will be staffed together, and they'll be allowed to self-manage it's called a batch, this group of 10 people that will be now handling, lost luggage on British Airways. So now you've carried over the recruiting, what used to be a recruiting process has become a much more co-created interaction now that you're dealing with a group. And then now that group of 10 is inside. So same deal, absenteeism starts going down, performance starts going up. You find that all the indicators of the call center start improving. There's an outfit called Live Ops, which is in essence a co-created call center. They are trying to build a community of independent agents that will take your calls. So you can view this as kind of the virtual call center. So independent agents, the new freelance economy, as they refer to themselves, we're a community of entrepreneurs and micro business owners. We value freedom and flexibility. In fact, our lives demand it. We choose work that sustains our lives rather than choosing a life that begins only after work. And what these people are able to do is, in essence, provide the value proposition or the experience that they provide, as they listed here for this lady here, who happens to be in wherever Lady Florida is, independence, choice, simplicity, community. So the way that works, it's a technology platform that allows to distribute the calls. People sign up, in essence, and they can literally do that in the half hour before the window when they are available out there. And then the calls will be routed to them. So there's a fair amount of technology in this particular case. And therefore, what they're able to do is scale up and scale down very, very fast.